Hello, and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. This is the podcast conversation with changemakers working to accelerate the transition to a sustainable carbon-neutral society. And I'm your host, Mitch Ratcliffe. It's good to have you back. You know, January 14th, 2023, although you may not have known it, was a banner day in the fight to reduce single-use plastic products in our lives. On that day, the British government's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs announced that it will ban a variety of single-use plastics starting in October of 2023. Among the single-use items banned are plastic cutlery, plates, bowls and trays, polystyrene cups, and takeout food containers, as well as cotton swabs made with plastic sticks and balloon sticks. People or businesses caught distributing these items could face a fine. In fact, new draft legislation suggests fines of up to 10% of revenues generated in the UK by offenders. And repeat offenders could go to prison for up to 2 years. Although this is not a comprehensive ban of plastic, because the rule will allow the use of durable, reusable plastic products and some single-use plastics in prepackaged foods, it's a huge step forward that can eliminate billions of pieces of plastic trash annually. The Ocean Conservancy's Vice President of Ocean Plastics, Nick Mallows, said in a statement that the decision, quote, not only do bans immediately prevent more plastic from entering the ocean, they can also clean up recycling streams and play an important role in catalyzing the needed transition to reusable systems. The Ocean Conservancy is thrilled that England has taken this critical step to phase out these harmful single-use plastics, and we look forward to seeing the ban implemented, unquote. The Ocean Conservancy's International Coastal Cleanup Manager, Sarah Weller, joins me today to discuss Britain's new single-use plastics ban, the prospects for more U.S. legislation following the extended producer responsibility laws passed in California and Colorado during 2022, and the state of environmental protection in the United States. You can learn more about the Ocean Conservancy at oceanconservancy.org. Ocean Conservancy is all one word, no spaces, no dashes, oceanconservancy.org. Welcome to the show, Sarah. How are you doing today?
Hi, Mitch. Great to meet you. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us and for all the work you're doing at the Ocean Conservancy as well. So I want to start off with just a very general question. How big a dent in the world's plastic problem does Britain's new law represent?
It's a great question. Long story short, the plastic pollution problem, I kind of like to think of it as multi-layered and multifaceted, right? And so what we're finding through beach cleanups, just kind of one piece of that kind of multifaceted solution set that we approach this issue with, is that a lot of the items that have been found on beaches are these single-use consumer items, a lot of foodware items, things that we'll probably talk about today with the passing of the UK's recent legislation, single-use plastic cutlery, single-use plates, cups, foam, and plastic takeaway containers. These are items that make up the majority of what volunteers are finding across beaches worldwide, in the UK as well, but worldwide during our annual international coastal cleanup. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give a quick shout out to our partner in the UK, whose volunteers over the years have collected over 60,000 pieces of plastic cutlery, 45,000 plastic cups and plates, and more than 35,000 foam takeaway containers. And that's through the Great British Beach Clean every year. And they contribute to the International Coastal Cleanup. And that's led by Marine Conservation Society. So it's thanks to them that we have these great data to help kind of inform policy change like we're seeing now.
You know, all up, when you look at the total amount of plastic produced in Britain, it's literally billions of pieces of plastic that are going to be taken out of circulation. Do you see what's going on in Britain, in Scotland and Wales, as well as Canada? California's Plastic Pollution Prevention and Packaging Producer Responsibility Act, Colorado's legislation, Oregon's. Are we seeing signs of an approaching tipping point in plastic regulation?
Ocean Conservancy feels that way. We're optimistic about it, especially with this kind of awareness that we've seen more than ever now. We're finding that volunteers are coming out for cleanups. People are more aware than ever, and legislation's being passed at a rate that we haven't seen in the last decade. So I think about 35 countries have banned or limited in some way the sale of these really common single-use items that we're finding on beaches. And then, of course, the legislation that you mentioned in California, we're really excited about, SB 54. That's our country's strongest legislation for plastic pollution prevention. So we're really excited that in the next, I think by 2032, plastic packaging and foodware sold in the state of California has to be kind of reduced by 25% across the board. And what's exciting about that is that it's not just banning those items, it's actually stopping the production, right? It's reducing and actually holding producers accountable for not only the end of life, right? But we actually want to get towards a circular life of a lot of these items. So we're optimistic about the tipping point, yes.
Well, circularity is a key idea. How would we have to change the design of plastic products, particularly, as well as how we produce and distribute all this stuff, in order for us to recycle more effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a challenge that we really face here in the United States. We have a pretty dismal recycling rate. I'm sure people have kind of seen the stats around. I think a lot of that has to do with extended producer responsibility, which is essentially what I just described, holding producers accountable for funding and improving kind of that end of life. So putting in, funding in place for improvements of recycling here in the United States, right? So for years we've been outsourcing our waste, and we generate more waste than any other country globally. So I should note that. I think UK is second to us, but we still per person generate twice as much waste. So we definitely need to tackle that problem here. And I think historically it's been more on the municipalities' shoulders to do that. But now it feels, especially with the legislation passing in California, that states are looking more into improvement. And hopefully that leads to nationwide changes too, so that we can really start making a dent. Because as long as, we don't want to be doing cleanups forever, we can't really recycle our way out of the problem either. But all of these I kind of see it as like a puzzle of all these pieces coming together can really move us in the right direction.
Well, at Earth911, we're always trying to help people take that first step, which is to put stuff into the recycling system, but it has to be designed to be recycled, and so much plastic isn't. Now, there's some bad news that came out just earlier this month. The Minderoo Foundation released its second Plastic Waste Makers Index, and they found that single-use plastic is still on the rise. Equivalent of 2.2 pounds of plastic per person on the planet per year. There is international discussion going on. The UN has a conversation going about the treaty on plastic pollution. Do you all see that as making progress at this point? Are you hopeful about that?
We do. We're hopeful. We have staff who are doing more work on the international platform with plastic pollution, and they're quite involved in the committees and a lot of the hearings that are taking place around this international non-binding treaty that's taking shape. So we find it exciting, and we're hopeful that it would prompt in-country solutions as well. So, right, sort of like the climate treaties that we've seen, like it feels for us like it's long overdue to have a plastic treaty in place as well.
It's non-binding though. So what does that actually influence anything, or is it simply a message that society wants to change?
I think it's more societal pressure. So, and again, it's just building more awareness across the board helps in that direction. Yeah.
Now, the focus on the British ban of single-use plastics, they allow durable plastic use. And for years, you've campaigned against the use of single-use plastics. But there's a perception that the Ocean Conservancy wants to ban all plastic. What would a world that you all talk about that uses some plastic responsibly look like?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and it's valid. We certainly know that plastic is so ubiquitous because of how useful it has become, right? There's all different types. There's, plastic helps us with food storage. It helps us in the medical space. So there are definitely ways in which we can use plastic in a smart manner that obviously if it's helping save lives, we're not, wanting to get rid of all plastic altogether. And we know we're pragmatic, right? We know that realistically, that's probably not a future that we see taking shape. But a lot of these single-use items, especially those that were covered in this UK legislation, what's covered with SB 54 in California, a lot of these are items that most of us can do without, or they can be designed in a better way to use less plastic to begin with, or to use alternative materials. So, and of course, we don't want to stop using plastic for one thing and then draw from resources in another way, right? Like we don't want to pull from virgin forests to make more paper, things like that. So as long as we can be smart about the way that we're producing items and packaging in particular, right? It's touched for 10 seconds and then it goes to landfill or it escapes into the environment. So I think those are the items that we're really trying to tackle, things like straws and plastic bags and cups and a lot of the takeaway materials.
Now, following on that, one of the big initiatives that you're participating in is the Plastic Pact, which has identified a lot of unrecyclable and carcinogenic plastics, PFAS, pigments used to color plastic, labeling technology that even though the plastic might be recyclable, the label stuck to it isn't. All of these things frequently get into the ocean. What's your assessment of the progress within the Plastic Pact and all the companies that are participating?
Yeah, that's a great one. I had to ask my colleagues who are in the policy space. They have their finger more on the pulse with this pact. They did say that they're waiting for the EPA to come around with kind of an update in the coming months on where we've made progress. They say that I think the pact says by 2025. A lot of these kind of bans on these items, these PFAS and other pigments and additives that you mentioned would be banned. My colleagues say that luckily a lot of states, just because of our entry into the pact, have kind of voluntarily taken the lead and are already making changes or passing legislation in advance, right? So on top of California, Delaware and Virginia are another couple of examples that they've already banned foam, right? So expanded polystyrene foam. That's a really big challenge. And it's, I spend a lot of time at cleanups with volunteers and we find lots of little tiny, like the foam beads that are
those things are just
yes. And it's horrible, right? Like you'll touch an item and it's just it'll just crumble in your hands. So those are the microplastics, those foam ones that really keep me up at night. And if we can really ban that in particular, that's going a long way. But yeah, more to come on the pact. I think our colleagues, basically what our colleagues have passed along to me.
So one of the conversations that we've been having on an ongoing basis on the show is about the claims that chemical or molecular or other forms of advanced mechanical recycling will create a circular economy in plastic. Do you all see that as actual progress, or is that a form of greenwashing that's going on at this point?
The chemical and the molecular, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our stance on that is that, pyrolysis, gasification, other chemical recycling technologies, it's just kind of a fancier way to say burning plastics for energy. And it's just not compatible. We don't find it to be compatible or healthy for ourselves, our communities, and for a plastic-free ocean and circular economy. And in our minds, it's just a way for the industry to keep this kind of nonstop production in place. It's not really this magic solution that it's kind of drawn out to be. And obviously burning of plastics emits greenhouse gases as well. So then we're just kind of adding to our massive climate change problem that we're facing.
Yeah, just in the past few days, I've been talking to a couple of companies that do enzymatic recycling, which actually sounds like it should work, but it'll be interesting to see. And I think the proof will be in the pudding, so to speak. Are you
encouraged? If it's scalable, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, does it? Yeah. So, are you encouraged by the plastic recycling investments you're seeing in the United States? Because we're the largest plastic polluter by a long shot. Are we actually building that's the basis for a circular economy in plastic, or is again that just something that is a great way to justify the continued use of fossil fuels?
It's weird. I think there's a balance to be played, right? It's nice that a lot of municipalities, not all in the US, but many do have that infrastructure sort of already in place, right? Of curbside recycling. So it wouldn't take much obviously we need to have improvements, but, and we need to allow consumers a chance to learn what is and is not recyclable where they live. It's quite confusing right now. So the onus should not be on the consumer. There's a lot that can be done to make it simpler for households and for families. But is that the only solution? No. And I think that's what, a lot of industry is trying to strive for. Again, I think it's just one piece to the puzzle. If there are necessary plastics, we need to at least make them recyclable, right? We shouldn't be, introducing a lot of items and packaging with things like plastic film that's not easily recyclable, so that if we can increase the number of facilities that can take that plastic, we're creating items that really truly can be recyclable and are recyclable. I think that would get us in the right direction, but we've got a way to go.
Once again, we'll see, but it does sound like you feel a little bit hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We find, at least I find at cleanups when I'm having conversations with volunteers, at first the conversation is, well, where did this all come from? And then almost, the next natural question is, well, what's going to happen with what we collect? So
Yeah.
it's nice that that public narrative is moving in that direction of, not only do we need to remove it from the environment, but they want to know, is this going to end up in landfill? Is it going to be burnt? Like, what's going to happen with this item, and can we recycle it? So it's good that in general, it feels like the public dialogue is moving in the right direction, and hopefully that pressure will continue to kind of get funding to these infrastructure that we need.
The story is so important. The idea that we do know what happens next, and that there's an accountability, and that it's not just a fantasy that we're being told. This is a fantastic discussion. I want to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back after those necessary ads. And now back to the conversation with Sarah Weller. She's the International Coastal Cleanup Manager at the Ocean Conservancy. Sarah, in the past, just at the beginning of 2023, we've actually had some pretty good news. The EPA blocked the Pebble Mine project that threatened Alaska's largest fishery, and that was based on the Clean Water Act. There's other decisions pending, but are you all feeling optimistic about how the U.S. government is moving on environmental protection?
Yes, we're excited about, especially this administration seems to be prioritizing protecting our environment. So Pebble Mine's one example, expanding in protection for national parks is another. So we do feel optimistic, and I know my colleagues in our Arctic conservation program kind of up that way, or we're very happy with the Pebble Mine outcome. And just overall, like I mentioned, there's just this tremendous energy and momentum at the state and local level to address, these environmental issues and plastic pollution in general. So we hope that pressure will kind of mount to some federal action down the road.
Now, there are also a lot of trade-offs and a lot of dealing going on in D.C. What should our listeners be tracking and taking action on, such as contacting the White House or Congress? What are you tracking this year as the key projects?
It changes daily. So I would say, keep an eye on, at oceanconservancy.org, we actually have a newsroom area where we keep, make note of kind of any updates that our policy team's working on here on the Hill in Washington, D.C. We have a blog section too. It's been really helpful I recommend listeners check that out if they want to learn more, and even a Take Action Center where you can find resources on who to contact, which representative to contact about what issue that you feel passionate about. And that goes for, plastic pollution, but all of our other work at Ocean Conservancy as well, from fisheries to Arctic conservation.
Great. We'll include links to those in the article that goes with the podcast. Now, another facet of this is what's going on at the state level. And there are a lot of different movements, recycled content requirements, such as what Washington State, where I live, is considering now. Virginia has expanded polystyrene, as you talked about. Are there particular state laws that you all consider good models for other states to adopt, that if, I want to write my legislator and my state legislator, I can point to and say, take a look at that?
I think from our side, that SB 54 in California is kind of the shining star example right now. And it really goes back to what I mentioned earlier about beyond just a ban, which in and of itself can be good and is a good kind of step in the right direction. But SB 54 is really great in that it's actually getting at reducing plastic produced in the first place. So it will kind of have that extended producer responsibility and hold those plastic makers responsible. And our team did some crunching of the numbers, and I think they said, over the span of the time frame, this would directly eliminate 23 million tons of single-use plastic packaging and foodware from the state of California alone. So having these staff like this and having the cleanup numbers, honestly, to kind of back up and act as evidence in moving this legislation in the right direction, I think always helps. I'm a big fan of data collection. I've been noting it a lot. And folks can get involved directly with that as well. I mean, at these cleanup events, we've got a number of tools where even if you don't want to, reach out to your legislator, you can contribute with the numbers of what you're finding at cleanups. The types and amount of trash found is immensely helpful. I know in Virginia, we're talking about that with extended polystyrene, but there's also been a mass balloon release ban as well.
Yeah, I hate those.
Yes, and our partner in the International Coastal Cleanup actually used balloons found during the ICC to push that legislation through. So it's really fun, I think, and great for us to see that these community science cleanups and the data that are collected by volunteers are actually being utilized on local, state, and even international level.
It's interesting what we can do now as individuals to report and hold accountable in ways that we could not, the companies or the organizations that make dumb decisions like releasing 1,000 balloons. Now, another area where you all have a lot of work going on is with regard to equity issues in plastic pollution, and particularly around fence line communities, those communities of color that are right up against where these products are made. What can our listeners do to help on those kinds of initiatives?
I'd say listeners can make a difference by calling on your elected officials to pass these laws that protect these fence line communities that you talk about. So there's one, for example, Protecting Communities from Plastics Act. This was introduced in the last Congress by Senator Cory Booker and then Representative Jared Huffman. And laws like this address kind of these sweeping harms that are caused by the petrochemical industry. And it kind of helps break our reliance on single-use plastic. So you're exactly right that these plastics and the petrochemicals that they're made of, it's not only fueling climate change, but it's worsening environmental injustice, and it's harming human health. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. And like you said, calling it out, making our elected officials, letting them know that you care about it, it can go a long way.
We even go as far as to recommend for people who cannot recycle locally that they go to their city council or solid waste management meeting with some of the stuff they would like to recycle and just show them, because it's so obvious when you look at it. But when you get a letter and no additional context, it doesn't sink in for the legislators. We need to make it simple and clear.
Absolutely.
Now, another area where you work is obviously the oceans. The fishing industry, its sustainability, and particularly its ongoing dumping of lots of plastic. In fact, maybe up to 60-70% of the plastic that is in the 5 major garbage gyres are fishing nets. Are you seeing meaningful progress on improving regulation and ending these practices?
We are, and I'm happy to say that a lot of my colleagues are kind of leading that charge. So really, wherever fishing takes place, whether it is illegal or industrial level fishing, there is this threat of lost, derelict, or otherwise abandoned fishing gear, or what we'll call ghost gear for short. And Ocean Conservancy, we have a global ghost gear initiative. It's kind of a branch or kind of a program within our trash-free seas team. And they're the world's only alliance that's dedicated to tackling this issue of these abandoned, lost, and otherwise discarded fishing gear, which, as you can imagine, continues to do its job very nicely, even when it's escaped into the environment. So talk about really deadly threats for marine life that we love. I mean, that those ghost gear cleanups and prioritizing and focusing on those massive, they'll accumulate into these kind of gear balls, they call them. Working on removing those is really key, and part of what this global ghost gear initiative does. But they also bring together a lot of different stakeholders. They've got government membership, academia, really just trying to bring that diverse group together to tackle this specific issue when it comes to the overall marine debris problem. And really overall, we find like fishermen, especially in the industry, they don't want to lose this gear. A lot of them, it's accidentally lost because it's expensive. So I love that we call it the triple GI, but the Global Ghost Gear Initiative is trying trying to do a lot with at ports, making a lot of this netting recyclable or having recycling facilities right where this gear is coming into place. So
does that include counting? Like we got this much back, we sent this much out, and so you could net out how much net is out there.
I believe so. I think that there's some sort of tracking like that. And they have an app where folks, if they're living in a location where you're finding almost primarily ghost gear, you can track those items too. And it's really interesting how even just knowing like the diameter of a net or the type, the color can really help indicate, is this aquaculture industry? Is this, you can almost kind of help identify the source of that type of fishing gear.
At the highest level, how are you all feeling about the state of the oceans? It feels like there are aspects of progress, and on the other hand, crises erupting everywhere.
Yes, it's tough. We want to stay optimistic. And at Ocean Conservancy, we try to focus on those major threats facing the ocean, right? So we're trying to tackle the big stuff. It can feel disheartening at times, but on the other hand, there's a lot of momentum. Like we said, we've had more than ever, probably in the last, I've been with Ocean Conservancy for almost a decade. In the last 5 years, massive public increase in interest, not only on this plastic issue, since, some celebrities and famous folks have kind of gotten on board with that issue, but it opens the door for all the other threats facing our ocean as well. And then obviously the big overarching climate threat, and the fact that the ocean for many years has kind of just been seen as almost too vast to be touchable, but now we're really realizing it's a carbon sink, and we've passed the tipping point in a lot of ecosystems, right? When we think about like fragile coral reef ecosystems in the Arctic, or really both poles. So I think, with the plastic pollution, the legislation that's been passing, we're optimistic that can move us in the right direction and hopefully get us on a trajectory to stop putting what shouldn't be going into the ocean in the ocean and get out what shouldn't be there, if that makes sense, to put it simply.
Well, and here's where I think our listeners can help. You all have been doing the Trash Free Seas program for 35 years. And this is so grassroots. 17 million volunteers have picked up 350 million tons of trash from beaches. How can people get involved and what events have you got planned for this year? Maybe around Earth Day.
I'm so glad you asked. Well, the first thing anyone can do is check out our website. If you want to learn more about these topics that we talked about and the International Coastal Cleanup, there's actually a map on our International Coastal Cleanup page where if you're not sure where to start, but you want to get involved in the cleanup, you can zoom in anywhere in the world and you can get connected with any of our partners who participate in this annual event. Now, that event tends to happen later in the year, so that's more around September timing. But like you said, Earth Day, there's a huge activation. June, around World Oceans Day, big activation, lots of cleanups happening. So check out that map and get connected with your partner locally. And they'll have a whole calendar of cleanup events that you can kind of plug into. And then even if there aren't cleanups in your area, we have an app called CleanSwell that allows you to track trash from any cleanup. So really during COVID, that was a tool that many of us leaned on. Even if you're just doing a cleanup around your neighborhood or around your block, any trash in the environment can make its way into a waterway. Most likely it will, right? It can wash down storm drains in urban location, or, you don't even need to be by a body of water to do a cleanup and track it on CleanSwell. So that's what I tell folks to do. Even if you don't live anywhere near the ocean, but you care about it and you want to do your part. And then of course, those data feed into an online database that help pull all of these levers that we've just been talking about, all the prevention side and the policy. So it's really encouraging there. So it's called CleanSwell and it's free to download on Android and any smartphone.
That's both a cool and a very utilitarian way to make a difference. I'm glad to hear that. Now, of all these things, all these projects that you do, which would you consider your most cherished? Which one would you tell everybody to get involved with?
Oh, well, I'm biased because I work on it, but the International Coastal Cleanup, I just love because we have volunteers, young and old, that can come out and participate. There are thousands of cleanups that happen every year in about, I think, over 100 countries every year. We've had over 150 countries participate over the course of like you said, it's almost a 40-year history that we're reaching. So it really is the world's largest volunteer effort for our oceans. And it's a great entryway to kind of get connected with ocean issues in general, learn more about the plastic pollution problem. And then, of course, with the data collection, I love to just be there with youth. And, they're tapping along in the CleanSwell app and they say, wow, this is the 15th plastic straw that I've counted. What can I do in my everyday life to maybe stop using straws? So you get that educational reflection moment almost at the event itself. And I just love having those conversations and kind of seeing the next generation get the cogs turning and really think about it and hopefully help keep us moving in the right direction.
Actually, just paying attention and doing the cleanup, it just becomes crystal clear for me. I mean, I walk in a park and it's the dog poop bags that just drives me nuts. But you all are making this connection for people, and that's what turns into real action. So I want to thank you for spending time with us and for everything that you guys are doing.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And I hope listeners learned something new.
I'm sure they did, Sarah. Thank you. That was Sarah Weller. She's the International Coastal Cleanup Manager at the Ocean Conservancy. And I urge you to get involved now. Just visit oceanconservancy.org. Ocean Conservancy, of course, is one word, no space, no dash, oceanconservancy.org. And look for links to the CleanSwell app, Take Action Center, their blog, and other opportunities to keep plastic out of our waterways and oceans. Our conversations often focus on your power as a consumer, but your ability to make a difference in the fight against single-use plastic can be amplified by the work the Ocean Conservancy does every day. Using the CleanSwell app to track the plastic waste you collect helps create accountability with the data that can drive public policy conversations. Visiting the Take Action Center at oceanconservancy.org and sending mail, email, letters, to Congress, the White House, your state's governor or legislature, or even local representatives can help tip the balance from a plastic free-for-all to a future in which communities assert control over their waste and make polluters help clean up their mess. Whether plastic manufacturers act out of carelessness or indifference to the environment, we no longer have to use their products without holding them accountable at a minimum to help prevent plastic pollution. Don't buy single-use plastics, and tell the companies you spend money with to make changes to eliminate plastic in their product or packaging and make it highly recyclable. This has been another great conversation about how we each can make a difference. And we've been sharing ideas on sustainability in your ear for many years, and the world is starting to embrace environmental awareness and responsibility. Would you take a moment to write a review so that we can share this podcast more widely? You all are the amplifiers that spread the ideas that create less waste. So let your friends, family, and coworkers know that you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, and all the other fine purveyors of podcast goodness. Folks, I will appreciate your support. The entire team at Earth911 will. Thank you. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. We're going to be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.